for a plan that didn't have broader community input. Is that correct?
We are doing another check-in with community as we're doing to make sure that we're moving forward correctly. This is sort of our last chance to adjust plans if we hear from the community that we hear a lot of different opinions of what we heard the first time. It is late in the process. We had a design, there was a design with bike lanes that we were going to move forward with. We are still open to changing. The question is, do we lose the grant? It's a little riskier because we do have to make some changes, but we think we can still do it, which is why we're moving forward. And so this is not a false choice, but it is, we are looking at time pretty closely. So that's a vaguish answer because we're not 100% sure. But we're going to do the best thing we can to try to get this project done, which does mean we need to make a decision and move forward pretty quickly.
Okay, question number 2. Was the King County Sheriff's Office consulted about traffic issues in the area?
That is an excellent question, and I don't know if we directly reached out to the King County Sheriff's Office.
I don't know if we reached out directly, but we work with them closely. We get a lot of feedback, ongoing basis, from the sheriff's office about issues out there, places they want us to concentrate, concerns they have. So we have a good working relationship with them.
So not directly, but through other means.
I'm sorry.
I think it was, is that question in directly to this project or just?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and any accident that's reported through the sheriff's office, that data is data that we use for this accident. And by the way, if you do have an accident, please make sure that, or if you observe one, contact the sheriff's office so we get that data so we can use it. If an accident is not reported, we can't use that data to do further analysis. So if you feel comfortable involving the sheriff, we really do like to get that information.
The food bank alone needs more parking besides the other businesses in the area. How do food bank patrons load their groceries into their car if they parked a distance away? 2 years ago, when the survey was done, the food bank had not moved to the area.
Thank you. So heard more interest in parking for the food bank. So thank you.
And one more.
Did the study look at how much bike traffic there is on 16th? I'm assuming the bike lane option came to the forefront from a need.
So the bike lane option came because of bike lanes. One, when we do a project on any project, bikes are part of a traffic calming feature. So it does help with safer roads. There's data around that. It's also part of our county's comprehensive plan that we think about safe streets for all. That includes biking, pedestrians, traffic, and bike lanes and multimodal traffic options is part of a policy choice, both for safety, also from an environmental standpoint. So we do want to have both more options for different people, safe options, and then also the positive benefits of cycling from an environmental standpoint. And we do know that dense communities, do have greater impacts from carbon emissions.
Thank you. Thank you. If you're online, please continue to ask the questions. We are going to now shift to people in the room. That's you, sir.
The bike lanes appear to start at one place and end there, and the connecting, they have to have, that puts bikes, if people to use them, if they did, they're going to have to connect with the other roads, which aren't necessarily set up for bikes. Why put them here? It seems like you're just plucking them in the middle of someplace.
Yeah, so that question, if you didn't hear that, is why do you put bike lanes without the connections to other bike lanes in the north and the south? There are bike routes, not lanes, routes east-west along 107th is a bike corridor, as on the north end. And then as you travel further north from 100th, you have a reduced lane street that then connects into more infrastructure to the north. The challenge with bike lanes is you do build them as you can, knowing that the network will grow. You don't get a network right away. As you build and the network builds. And I will just say, as someone who does bike a lot in the area, I've seen that infrastructure grow and that connectivity grow. I also know I tried to ride up this road 2 years ago, and I'm not going to do it again until it's got a different configuration. So it's not surprising we don't see a lot of bikes there today. But after this project, I definitely think we'll see a difference.
All right.
Thank you. I'm here to voice some criticisms. I appreciate the opportunity to do so. I hear a lot and agree with a lot of the lofty goals around pedestrian safety. Can't argue with that. Bike lanes, the eco-friendly considerations, and so on. But these to me seem like lofty goals that are taking precedence over the practical considerations of daily life in this community. Just coming up to 16th to run chores and do errands, go to the grocery store. Taking us down to one lane of traffic in either direction, it comes at a cost. Is that cost commensurate to what we're getting for 6 blocks of bike lanes? I'm sure just about everybody in here has experienced the blunder of Burien going down Elmbaum since we lost a lane of traffic to the Rapid H. It's not fun. I appreciate the person who pointed it out earlier, that during peak travel times, what used to be a simple 9-minute drive down to Old Town Burien now takes upwards of 15 minutes. And that doesn't sound like a lot when I'm just trying to feed my kid and they're irritable in the back seat. It does make a big difference for me. And it's frustrating to be stuck at lines, single file, slowly accelerating through the queue, just to see the Rapid H occasionally zip through. Now, I think that the Rapid H is a more important cause than just a few inches of bike lanes here, especially in a community that has been asking just for sidewalks where they don't exist since time immemorial. And so you can imagine my dismay when the first significant pedestrian safety project that's happened in my 7 years of living here is being targeted in a place that already has sidewalks, where the sidewalks, aptly, as someone again pointed out earlier, aren't even being changed. You can build the fanciest sidewalks with all the fanciest buffers in the world. As long as there is an open-air drug market by Viva Mexico, I'm not bringing my kid or my family on foot up to this space. So I am concerned also when I've talked to King County about the plans that were made around the effect on Ambound for the Rapid H, that they were based on measurements done in 2019 about the traffic volumes, and what they thought the impact on traffic would be was, quote, marginal, before behaviors and traffic's changed after COVID and all that. But again, as we all know, we're stuck in the grind just waiting to go down and do simple things down in Burien. The people who are voicing concerns about parking for their small businesses, I feel you, but to be honest, I think you should be more concerned about whether people come here in the first place if they have to go through a meat grinder just to go down 6 blocks. Because frankly, I go to Burien half as much as I used to during peak times because of the traffic that has increased. I go elsewhere now for my needs, and I think the business owners in this area should have the same concern. Thanks for letting me vet.
Thank you.
you.
All right, we got one this way.
Hi, I have a 2-part question. The first is very quick. Will there be any trees planted in the sidewalks or road area as part of this project?
So this project does not, and I'm looking at you to confirm, does not have any new trees.
Okay. I feel like that's a huge issue. I think something that is a detriment to White Center is that there is no visual appeal. Like, it's just concrete everywhere. And if we want to kind of slow things down, it feels like having the actual environmental, have it look nice is one way of doing it to make people linger in the area. So I would strongly suggest that we get some trees in this downtown area, if we can, as part of this project. My other thing, quickly, I live on 17th and 102nd. I'm curious if anything was studied in terms of how traffic will reroute to avoid having only 2 lanes onto 17th, because 17th is already, if anyone lives there, is already very, very dangerous. I witness at the 17th and 102nd intersection near crashes daily. I live in that corner house. I know it's not, I've spoken to you all before about this, and there is no official data, but from my personal experience living there for multiple years, there is no 4-way stop. There needs to be in multiple areas on 17th, and my big concern about this project is that traffic will reroute from the White Center cutoff and go down 17th to avoid all of 16th. And so I was curious if you all had thought about that and repercussions of this, and if we could also incorporate 4-way stops at each of the 17th intersections as part of this project.
Well, I do want to talk about traffic and the city boundaries.
Sure. So, yes, we did look at that. We did consider that. What's traffic going to do when this goes in? So that was a consideration. And there is an impact. You know, it's not going to pretend like there isn't. There is an impact to doing this. There, you know, it comes in a balance. To increase safety, there's going to be a balance. It's not expected to be, and again, it depends on your perspective, it's not expected to be have a significant impact on rerouting. We do have a post-construction plan to look at that. If it is rerouting, do we need to put in traffic calming measures on other streets around here? To, you know, you mentioned some ideas, but that's in the monitor. That's going to take place in the monitoring after this project goes in.
And then just want to mention, one of our partner agencies, Water and Land Resources, just hired an urban forester. So the county now has an urban forester. Street trees and trees in urban areas are a very high priority. We're working with them. The county road engineer and I met with that team last week just to start talking about what are some things we can do to really accelerate that. It's hard because trees and sidewalks often are, it is hard to have trees and sidewalks next to each other and have them both be viable. So that's the struggle is real. And I think just like these different traffic trade-offs, you know, we have to consider all those trade-offs, and it gets pretty complicated, but it's a high priority because it's not just for aesthetics, but for heat mitigation, and yeah, they're important.
Tricia,
All right, we got
Tricia,
one.
I want to add one more thing to that. So the Department of Local Service will be doing a White Center beautification study starting next month. So we're going to be engaging residents again and asking what it is you want to see in your neighborhood, in the business core area. So trees, planters, things like that. So we're going to be engaging soon. So we have funding to hire a consultant. A consultant is on board, and we will be coming out to you soon. So we're at
That's
a meeting
the-
today. So next month sometime.
That's outside of this current project, right, David?
That is different from this project and slightly outside of the area, but you know it's going to make an impact.
Okay.
We're trying to hear what you have to say.
Okay, we got one back here.
I'm just more of a comment and concern that bike lanes are going to create a thoroughfare rather than, like, the food bank has done such an amazing job to be this community space here, and if we have these bike lanes, is it going to just be moving people through rather than creating space for people to come together as community? And I think the White Center businesses down here too have worked so hard to do that, and bike lanes to me just feel like they're creating more of that back and forth fast and not stop, come in. So, thank you.
All right, we're gonna come up to him, and then we'll go right to you.
So I have a couple of thoughts. I agree about 17th. Right now, there is traffic going down 17th with the roads we have right now. I rode it earlier this afternoon on my bike. What I think might be something to consider is make it a greenway and have only local traffic, because you're going to have a problem on it. You already do have a problem on it. The other thing is, I think it's a little bit short-sighted. One of your bullet points is future vision. I don't see the future vision. I think I agree with this, just a throughway for bikes. I don't think that's a good idea. And I certainly wouldn't stop at 107. I wouldn't go on 16th with bicycle lanes and stop at 107. You cannot. Umbum's a dangerous road to ride on a bicycle. So I think you need to reconsider what you're doing on 16th. I don't think it's going to be a viable thing for businesses or for bicyclists.
All right, so here we're gonna have a questions here. We're gonna go interpret questions, and then we got some in the back here, and we'll come back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to voice my support for bike lanes as a part of this project. I think we've heard a lot of concerns tonight about the impact to businesses, the impact to local communities around here. I just want to share my experience. I moved here 7 years ago. My partner and I bought a house. I was a cyclist in the city for many, many years. I came here, I tried to be a bicyclist, it just didn't happen because it's so unsafe around here. And I mean, I know these bike lanes are not going to change that. They're not going to create this a safe area for cyclists, but it's a start. And it's like either we put these bike lanes in or we figure out like some broader strategy to make this neighborhood safer for cyclists, because right now it's just not safe at all. And so whatever needs to happen in order for this to be a neighborhood that prioritizes all modes of transportation, because right now it's just like cars only. If you don't have a car, you can't get around in here. Even walking, right? Like I try to walk with my family, I got my 3 kids here, we're out in the stroller walking up and down 16th. It is not a nice place to walk, right? You got cars shooting by on both sides. It doesn't feel like all modes of transportation are being prioritized. I feel like, you know, and I'm open, I understand that this is not a bike corridor that's viable, right? And, you know, people have concerns about traffic, but like future thinking here, we don't want a car-centric community here. We want somewhere where everyone can walk around. If you live in the neighborhood, you should be able to get where you need to go on foot or on a bike and not feel like you're gonna get killed. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna go here, and then we'll bring it back.
We've been here for a long time. I don't know if you know the Khmer community. Some people don't even know who Khmer is. But anyway, we've been here, and many of our elders do walk here. So I agree with more trees. Great, aesthetic, and environmental friendly. Reducing the traffic, right, is going to cost more, and then reducing the parking. So I'm here for the business as well, that we have many of our Khmer grocery stores, 3 Khmer grocery stores here. And I mean, just coming here, it took me 2 rounds just to find parking. So I understand those who are for bike, but our neighborhood, you have to look at the benefit of it and the cost. So I think this is my first time hearing about the survey, by the way. So it was not reached our community at all, and we haven't heard this first time. And so we're here just to let you know that having a bike lane I think is more of a safety concern, just because, only have 1 lane and I don't know, backing up for parking. I don't think it's safe at all to add that at a current, and then I would reduce to 1 lane each way. So, thank you.
Okay. My other question and my concern is what will happen when you start to work. You close the street, and what happened with the business? Because if my customers look the street closed, where they go? They say, oh, it's closed, I don't need to go because it's hard to find parking or something. So what is the impact when you start to work? What happens?
No, that's an ongoing concern. On any project that comes up, construction impacts to businesses during construction, especially when it can last months. It's significant. So as part of the contract, the contractors are required to leave walking areas open. In other words, sometimes it's with cones or tape, but to maintain those corridors. The street will not be closed during construction, so that it will be flagged. There's always going to be traffic to be able to go up and down. It just gets too many cars to close. So it's built into the contract where the contractor has to maintain access to businesses.
And how long time do you work? Because sometimes the project take 1 year, 2 years. So how long time is the project?
I don't have the days on hand, but this isn't one of our longer term projects. Most of the work is striping. So, grinding off the old stripes and laying the new ones. That's most of the work. We do have the concrete work at the intersections, which that takes a little more time. There could be some drainage that goes with that takes a little time. But it's not like one of those quarter-mile projects where we're putting new sidewalk, replacing sidewalk, doing the whole drainage, moving utilities. Those are the ones that you see take a much longer time. I would guess it would be several weeks, but a lot of that is staging or prep, not real hard impacts. Again, this will be striping. That goes pretty quick between the intersections. There'll be a point where we want to overlay the road, do new paving. Usually that's, one lane at a time, the paver passes. But that goes pretty quick. You can pave a lot of that in just a few days.
All right, we got a question here. We're going to go there. We got 10 minutes. And then we got one here. And we actually have one here, but I'll ask that.
Hi, thanks so much, Kim Nong, for organizing this and for the opportunity to talk about this together. I'm curious what impressions your team has been, gathering and what you're sort of taking in about the cultural impacts of the proposal around bike lanes and what your understanding sort of the gentrification dynamics may be as a result of this, taking into account different lifestyle practices relative to biking, and what data and impressions you have about the use of bikes for transportation among locals and different populations in the area.
We've definitely heard a lot of different opinions about bikes. Certainly, we know that gentrification is a concern from a lot of community members. And so I hear that, we're listening to that. We still are the most important thing we're thinking about for this project is safety. And I know that there are a lot of different factors. So I will say it is something that we have heard and
Just to follow up, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, safety can mean a number of different things. Obviously, you're talking about physical safety and preventing accidents and people being physically hurt. But another factor that I'm hearing in this conversation from a number of people is economic safety and cultural safety. And so I guess I wanted to underscore that safety needs to mean a number of things in this conversation.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, a couple of short questions. The funding and the grant that we received, is that exclusively for work on 16th in this 4-block section? So the ideas of like opening up greenways or bikes on 15th or 17th are not on the table whatsoever for this particular funding?
They are not part of this project and they're not for this funding. Yes, it is for this corridor.
Okay, thank you. I also just I'm a cyclist. I got an e-bike myself in October, and there's funding at the state level supporting e-bike vouchers as well for all people. And like with the hills in Seattle, lots of us have not been cycling, and with e-bikes now we can. And that I just think it's a booming industry that is coming for like adults, children, all income levels, and can be a very effective way for economic mobility for anyone, especially with a $1,200 voucher coming at the state level for e-bikes. But let's make sure we're building good bike infrastructure. Just because we're throwing down some paint doesn't mean that it's actually safer. I'm curious now, because many of us have looked at can you look at the model for option 1, please, of the where the lanes are going? Can we look at that slide? And then I'm done. Yeah, that one, gorgeous, thank you so much. Is there any room for community input on that? Of putting the parked car line, because there's several of us who are concerned about cars crossing the bike lane why would we not move? I mean, there's lots of pros and cons, but is this up for conversation, or is it, as it stands, option 1, Or option two, if we do bike lanes, it must look like this. That's my question. Is this up for conversation and community input?
Yes, I'm seeing Wally say yes. So we would like to hear what your thoughts are. Yeah.
Yeah, and just one thing that's limiting here is because of limited funding. Sorry, just one thing I want to add. Because of the funding and what we can do, we're limited to this cross section. So whatever you want to propose has to fit, between the sidewalk curbs. So all right, thank you. But please, that's the reason we're here, to get that feedback. So please put that down in the survey.
I texted it to 40 people.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Quick follow-up.
So looking at that, am I to assume those bike lanes are unprotected bike lanes? No little curb, again, between the bike lane and the traffic, or any like little bollards? Yeah. Oh, okay.
That guy right there.
But that's only on one side, it looks like, because if you're going to parallel park on the other side, cars got to be able to get in and out.
No, you're right. This gives you some guidance, some visual guidance as you're driving down the road. These things are sticking up. Sorry, I'll put my mouth a little closer. But yeah, this gives you visual guidance as you're driving down the road. There's going to have to be gaps or driveways for parking and that sort of thing.
Oh, so there will be gaps for the parallel parking cars?
Yes.
As a cyclist, I would prefer to see the parking lane and the bike lane swapped with the sidewalk and the bike.
By show of applause, if you're a cyclist and we want that moved.
All right, we were going to speed it up a little bit. Did you fully answer that? Yeah. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So.
Hello? Okay, I don't really have a question, but I do want to offer the food bank's perspective during this whole process. Back in 2022, I had reached out to Rhodes to learn more about what the design was going to be, knowing that the food bank would be moving here. I was told at 90% design we would reach out to you, and I never heard from anyone again. And then heard that, oh, we never heard from the food bank, so the food bank doesn't care what happens here. And that's just not true. I don't think even back then we could have anticipated the amount of need that we're currently seeing. Since we moved into this building in January and started service, we're already at 40% over 2023 and nearly 200% over 2019. A majority of our customers have to take car to get here. Many of them, 40% are elders, and so riding a bike to the food bank maybe isn't feasible. We're very lucky to have amazing volunteers that actually ride their bikes to the food bank and deliver to our homebound customers. So I want that to be in people's minds as well. So on any given day, we're seeing almost nearly 400 families coming to the food bank, and I know that puts a lot of pressure on many of the White Center businesses that are close to us, and they have been very generous and kind with their parking spaces, but we recognize the types of pressures that we're putting on the larger business community as well, with the way the economy is, not only in our region, but really across the nation.
I think that was a statement. So we're going to just go to questions. There's some in the back here. Big shout out to the biggest car club in White Center called Easy Does It. If you came to the Lowrider Show, they're putting White Center on the map. But the question is, my guys didn't want to ask, so I'll ask it. Question 1, is there a deck for the price breakdown similar to the deck that you guys did for the car, the bike lane breakdown? Have you figured that breakdown for parking? Second of all, there's a big study done nationally in every cities, in Colorado dot, Michigan dot, all different types of dots. But there's cities also that's doing it. Tucson did a study. But reverse angle parking has more density for parking, plus has more awareness for coming out of their parking spot because they're facing this way. So you don't have to allocate for a specific bike lane, but bikers can still feel comfortable going into it, and you can still have parking. It's like the best of both worlds, because the question and concern was, It's not illegal to drive down the lane on a bike, but it is illegal to put a bike lane in to park on a to park in the bike lane spots. So that's the two difference. So those are the thoughts. Have you done those studies on it? Because of the legal parameters, once people start having less, they're going to try to park in the bike lane. Biking will always be available to any spots. And the second one was, what are the exact same work and data that you did that was similar to the data you did for the price breakdown for parking? What does that look like?
Well, yeah, that's a lot bigger table, but we can go back and get that. I don't know if that data we can put on our website. Okay, I'm sorry. We don't have that data with us. You know, it would be a big table, lots of information there. You know, gravel quantities, whatever. It's just a lot of info, but that breakdown does exist. It's a part of our cost estimate. So not something I have with me today, though.
Is that a follow-up thing that maybe we can send out?
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. Either put it on the website, and maybe you can help me reach out to others that might not have access to internet.
Absolutely.
But see what we can do on that.
Okay. And then the second one was the reverse angle parking.
Our engineers did look at that. One of the constraints here, when you're building a new road, new corridor, and you've got you can make it wider. That gives you more options. Here we're measured curb to curb, so engineers did that. They took the measurements. They put it in the modeling. If a car backs out, how far does it go? And with one lane traffic, it makes it a little more problematic because the cars on the traffic or on the lanes, they're stalled longer. So then you get those longer backups that affect traffic. So those are different things that they looked at. And there's probably other things I can't think of off the top of my head, but they did look at the back-end angle parking, yes.
I want to piggyback on the neighbor that talked about economic safety, and I want to know, is there any part of this federal grant that is earmarked for any of the property owners or the businesses who may have to make alterations to their off-street accessibility or their off-street parking, or the business and property owners that you're requiring to get special permits because they may have a decades-old sign that was properly permitted through King County that may be encroaching 0.3 cubic meters on the right-of-way because the federal grant is requiring the right-of-way to be cleared in order to get the money? Is there any of that grant money that's going to alleviate some of that economic costs to the property and business owners? I'm thinking specifically of the laundromat. No customers are going to be able to back out of that laundromat onto 16th. I mean, it's already pretty dicey, right, in that particular spot. And that's where the main crosswalk calming has been done on this 4-block stretch already.
That's a long one. The answer is no.
Yeah, I don't believe that there is money in the grant for those items. I don't know the specifics. I'm sorry about that driveway that you're referencing. So.
Yeah, as far as the money, this is a federal grant, and that question was asked, can we use money for the relief of businesses, even if it's several $100s for the sign permit? And since it is federal money, there's tight restrictions and guidelines, and one of them is the money can't benefit the private property owners. That's, the money comes with strings, and unfortunately that's one of them on this project.
Property owners are going to be out of pocket to make this thing go. There's nothing.
Property owners are going to be out of pocket to make this thing go. Is there nothing?
So what we need to do as part of the federal rules is we need to make sure that we're following the requirements around property rights, which in some cases means property owners need to pay for encroachments. We did work, there could be opportunities for local grants that are not part of this grant for this project. And that's something that I'm looking at David, because I remember talking about this a couple of years ago, and I just don't remember if we had a source for that. So I'm very sorry that I don't have that information. And I'm not trying to put him on the spot, even though I guess I just did. But I just don't have the answer to your question right now. But it as part of this grant, no. And we are following federal rules because that's what we do.
We are out of time. If anybody wants to go, no, we're not out of time, but we are over time. So if you feel like you need to get up, don't feel rude. The county has said that they're going to stay a little bit longer, which is great. And hopefully they're all salaried employees because we're going over. We're going to have a question here, and we'll go to Donna.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to ask about timeline. So you're going to share results with us after they've been collected on July 31st. And then is this project, like, if all goes well and the option is, like, you know, everyone's spoken and we know what we want to go with, are we hoping to have this project completed by this year, or are we looking at more like next year, stuff like that?
Yeah, the goal is to complete design this year, in the next coming months. Part of that process, the design goes to WashDOT. They administer the federal money. So that's where you heard the state before, because the state doles out the money and make sure we're doing everything right. There's a longer process for that, and then the money would be obligated for construction for next year, 2025.
All right, we got a comment from online from Amy.
I know a volunteer at the food bank who walks there from up the hill. He sees cars driving 60 miles per hour through the current corridor.
That was just a statement, and thank you.
I had a question about funding. I saw on the website that this was funded by a grant and also with COVID relief funds. So I was just curious what the COVID relief fund is and how much of that is going into this project.
How much is...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't believe there are COVID relief funds going into this particular project, but I need to confirm that.
There is on the website. It says
it on the
COVID,
website.
it says the grant from the safety grant. It's on that website.
Okay. I'm sorry. We'll have to get back to you on that.
There was a question in regards to how did parking in the in front of the food bank went from, I think, 7 to, what does the slide say? 8 to 18. How was that made possible? If there's no angle or whatever, I guess assume.
Yeah, it's looking and I don't remember the details, but when we looked at this corridor, one of the comments that kept coming back was the food bank needs more parking, needs more accessibility for its users. So the engineers looked at where can we move parking, open up parking here, how can we reconfigure things, how can we shift things. So there was an effort made when we did this redesign to maximize the parking in front of the food bank.
How is the question? If it's parallel and it's currently there and it's 8, how did you turn it into 18?
Yeah, I don't have that exact, I just don't recall that iteration off the top of my head.
Did it turn into angle parking or did it turn?
No, it's still parallel parking, but I'd have to go back and check that out.
Still parallel parking, but it's now 18. Okay.
Yeah, and just remember the fundamental change in this project is right now we've got 5 lanes of traffic. This is going to go to 3 lanes of traffic, right? Because it's 2 in each direction with a center turn lane. It's going to be 1 in each direction with a center turn lane. And then those side lanes are going to be either bike lanes or parking. So it's based on the alignment of the road. So that's why you can have more parking in some spaces. Now, again, the details of that we don't have today, but that's why you can have more parking because there are fewer lanes of car travel.
I think the spirit of the question is that it's already parallel and it's already 8. The street doesn't get any bigger this way. How do you add 18?
Yeah.
So we do have the plans. I believe are the plans on the website? Yeah.
But you're taking these notes, and we'll go back and we'll find the information, and it'll be either on public input, and those links are all up here.
And we can certainly put, if they're not there already, we can put the plans on the website that show where the parking was and is and the individual spots. So you folks can go back and look at that and see what's what.
All right, time for 2 more questions. I see one here, and
Hold on, we'll scan it.
oh, hold on.
Okay.
All right, so there's 1, 2, 3. I see 3 more. All right, I'm going to do
Briefly, with regards to the goal of reducing the speed of traffic, was a reduction in the speed limit considered? And I also understand that the survey that went out 2.5 years ago did solicit interest in green medians and the like, and so we already weighed in on that. Was there not sufficient interest? Has that ship sailed, or are we going to be able to, after the fact, introduce green to these spaces? So speed limit and green based on the original survey.
Yeah, so what we looked at everything. We looked at speeds, we looked at speed limits. Oftentimes the reality is reducing the speed limit doesn't cause drivers to go slower. I mean, there takes a lot of enforcement along with it, which is lacking. So, pardon?
Is that a database statement?
Yeah, yes. No, it's our experience. I mean, it's one of the biggest complaints we get is speeding. We've got lots of measures. We've got the radar speed signs you've probably seen, narrowing streets, sometimes striping them, giving them a narrower feel. There's different treatments. Enforcement is the biggest impact. What we've seen that has the most dramatic impact in something like this are these traffic calming measures we're looking at here. We've done these before where we see a significant decrease in collisions right away. Anecdotally, you've heard of people talking about how fast cars go down. A configuration like this slows traffic. And that's just a reality. And again, mentioned early on, one of the reasons the site came up is it has a pretty high accident rate. I mean, it's not small. Those numbers that I mentioned, in the hundreds of collisions, that's significant. And that's going on in this community. So that's the focus of this, and that's how we ended up with where we are today.
I was curious, I might have missed this. As part of this plan, are there going to be actual stoplights installed at any of the intersections that don't currently have them? So that would be like 104th, 106th, right?
No.
I think there's a few of them that don't have it. They just have the push button to cross.
So we're going to have the push, where we don't have them now, there will be the push button flashers. Push the button, the flashers come on to warn drivers that someone's crossing, but it won't be a stoplight.
Okay, so it'll be the same, but will it be like an enhanced push button crosswalk that's more visible?
Yes, they'll definitely be upgraded. There'll be curb extensions that come out, so the crossing distance is shorter. Well signed, well lit, and bright flashing beacons make it much more visible.
Okay, and then the intersections at like 100th and 102nd, where currently it takes a very long time for the pedestrian walk signal to turn, especially like at 100th. Are those going to be retimed in any way so that they're more responsive to someone pushing the button?
It's possible. Those are things that we review on an ongoing basis out there because traffic patterns change. If the street gets busier, that can affect how we have to change the timing to kind of keep traffic flowing and balance that with people crossing. So it's one of those ongoing things. If someone has a comment on a specific signal they'd like us to look at, we'll take a look at that, have some folks look at that. A lot of these we can do from the office. Some of them we have to come out and look at, but we can definitely look at that. So put that on the survey question if you have a signal in an area that you want us to take a look at. And with your contact info, we'll get back to you.
All right, we have a question over here.
Thank you. So I just wanted to reiterate concern on the traffic being rediverted to the adjacent streets, especially 17th Avenue, which I understand you're saying that's not part of the current purview of this project, but are you pursuing grants or anything to make improvements on 17th, to add sidewalks or to restrict traffic on 17th in any way? Is that something that's already being looked at?
So we can check. So what we have is we have a transportation needs report called our TNR, where we look at all of the needs that we've identified across the county, and then we prioritize those. So it could be on that TNR. I can't promise that it's on there. And what we do, I mean, this is a broad statement, but we try to look at every call for grants. Every time there's a grant opportunity, we look to see, do we have anything on that list, anything that we know of that could be eligible for a grant. And different grants have different criteria. So for example, in this particular one, it was a safety related grant. We found an area that we thought would be eligible. We applied for it, we got the grant. So that's all to say that I don't know if we're not, so we look at our different corridors based on the amount of traffic we have, we see what matches any grants, and then if we can find one that will help us do a capital project. And we'll keep monitoring this neighborhood for traffic impacts and watch how things happen. And again, we also appreciate, as you tell us too, the impacts that you're seeing so we can match that with what we're observing.
We're going to end it with Helen. Before we ask Helen's question, there is a question down that way in regards of the survey. Thank you for putting that up. Question 1 would be, if we want community input, why not extend it for 1 more week? Question 1. Question 2 would be, how come there's not a deadline that's actually on the survey? I guess there's not a deadline or whatever within the survey, so that maybe we just need to put that in. Last question is, there is knowledge that the questions and the verbiage has changed in the survey. Are we going to articulate or communicate that in any way, form, or fashion when we are making these decisions with the language changing?
So that's why when we broke down the data, we did the July 10th through the 16th, and the 16th through the 24th, and then the 24th, which is tonight, until the survey closes on July 31st. So we're trying to be very transparent about when people took the survey, the results of the survey, and we are keeping it open for another week.
Another week after the 31st?
Just the 31st.
And on the 31st, is there any reason why we can't extend it for another week?
We can extend it for another week. We really do want to make a decision very soon, but we can extend it 1 more week. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question for Wally when we were talking about the signal, right, a full signal installation at these key corners. I was wondering what was the reason for not going with the full signal, right? Because when we think of a signal light, we feel much more safer than, right, the blinking piece. Could you talk a little bit about that? Is it budget? Is it cost? Or
If there's a couple things, budget and cost do go into it. They're much more expensive, so it does go into it. But we follow national standards and guidelines when we put in a signal. It's got to meet certain criteria, and it's pretty strict. What triggers a signal, what doesn't. Because say a signal that doesn't see a lot of accidents or an intersection, if you put in a signal, you can get more rear-end collisions because people stop and hit the person in front of them. Those are usually more minor injuries, but there's always a balance. But oftentimes where we do put in a signal, it's because we have different types of collisions we're eliminating. There might be some other things that other things that arise. So it's really, because of that, we're very careful to follow national standards, guidelines, and they're called warrants, but there's a set of criteria you have to meet before you put in a signal. But we do get requests for signals quite often. Put in a signal at my intersection. When we do get a request, we do an evaluation, and oftentimes we do vehicle counts, do a collision history, do an accident history, and we let the person know why we can or aren't going to do a signal. Sometimes it leads to different improvements. Well, we can't do a signal, but during our investigation, we realize, well, maybe we can do this.
Yeah. I just think that's a sort of a typical answer, because I just do feel that signals, and I think it does come down to cost to a certain degree. And I think White Center, many times again, the money isn't there,
right? The funds aren't allocated. I just want to just say that we are interested in this plan and how it impacts the community right today as well as into the future. I think our question is, right, whose future? And I think when we talk about the economic displacement, I just want everyone to realize that there's several factors that are encroaching in our ability to stay here. And I think this roads piece is one of 20 factors of the displacement pressures that we experience. And so I think to know that everything is interconnected, right, it was a couple of years ago that we had 19 BIPOC businesses displaced because of the fires that occurred, right? And I know that we have a beautification plan that's underway that David talked about, but it's a study. It's not the tangible verticals, the trees, the pieces that we want to see, that we want to experience, that we want our elders to be able to not just walk from point A to point B, but we want an experience, right? We want a place that we can call our own. So it's all interconnected. And so I think our community is saying the studies are hard for us because we don't see the tangible results of the studies. And do the studies have funding to back that study up? I don't hear the funds that are coming forward after the studies are complete. So, right, you ask us to invest tonight and, right, other nights that you want us to come together and invest in these studies, but it's difficult. It's difficult for us. So we want you to realize the interconnectedness of our communities, that it's not just this 100th to 107th. Okay, and we're asking you to plan for now, for the people who are here and the people who have been here.
We hear you.
All right. White Center showing up tonight. Give yourself a round of applause.